I'm going to be removing further fuel pipes. I think this is the fuel return pipe. So that I can actually get this off successfully, there's another one just in the middle of the cylinder head there. Just piece of hose here which is all swollen and it's clearly hard. It looks new. And round the other side there's another one as well, which the pipe runs. We've got a metal pipe here running from the rubber, and it goes down the side of the block into this. Oh, if I can get there. There's a piece of, it's about 6 inches. I can't really get the camera in. Let's just try and turn another way. Where is it? Struggling to get the camera in, but it's down here anyway. There's one hose clamp, there's another one, that's about 6 inches. I can't trust that rubber is in good condition, or this one. It gets awfully hot down here, and that I believe that's the return pipe, and it goes through the cooler and then back to the petrol tank. People think that all of the petrol that gets pumped to an engine gets burnt or gets used. It doesn't. Only a small percentage actually goes into the it goes in under huge pressure into the manifold, into the fuel pressure rail, I beg your pardon, and it's measured amounts are sent into the manifold, but not everything that's in the fuel rail, and it simply circulates. It comes from the fuel rail. Whatever doesn't go into the inlet manifold goes back into this return and takes that route across the front of the cylinder head and through this cooler, because you can imagine it's picking up quite a lot of heat. This is all rather hot round here. It gets very hot down here, even hotter down there. It goes right next to the block, this metal pipe, and then goes underneath. We're quite close to the exhaust manifold. There's another manifold here. It's bloody hot down here, so that petrol will be quite hot, and I would imagine this pipe is going to be virtually mush, and that is the fuel cooler just here. So it cools the fuel before it then returns along this pipe, which is insulated here from the heat of the manifold, and then it sort of disappears down and we can't really see it. It goes underneath the car and ends up going back into the petrol tank of which it came out of, and it has to go into the correct petrol tank. These cars carry 2 tanks, and there is a special changeover switch that that it returns to the correct tank. If it doesn't return to the correct tank, what happens? So imagine if both tanks were completely full. This one's full and that one's full, and if we've got there's a changeover valve, so you can change from left to right tanks, and then there's also the valve also operates where the return goes to. So obviously if the unused fuel is coming back through here, getting cooled and then returning by one pipe, there's not 2 pipes, there's only one, and it can either go to the right hand tank or the left hand tank. If that valve fails, it then pumps fuel back into the wrong tank. Let's say it draws it from the left hand tank and returns it to the right hand tank. Now if that right hand tank is full, if you fill both tanks, if it's full, it's already full and it's returning unburnt fuel back to here, and it will overflow down the wings. And I believe that is what's happened on this car at some point, because this tank, even though it's got nothing wrong with it, it works, there's no holes in it, it's not rusty, the pump and everything works, but it's been disconnected. It's only running off the left hand tank, and I believe one of the tanks was overflowing, and due to the valve failure, and the valve's disconnected, everything's disconnected, so I need to repair that valve. So obviously if the tanks only stay like a quarter full, and it's sucking out of the left hand tank and then return it to the right hand tank, you're not going to have that overflow problem, but you will appear to use a lot more fuel. The fuel consumption will appear to be on the gauge. Shocking. It will go down very, very, very quickly on the tank that you're using. Then suddenly you'll end up with more fuel in the right hand tank than you seem to remember you had. It's simply returned to the wrong tank. Petrol circulates. So this, in short, I'm going to be fiddling about. I'm not going to be able to film it because I can't get the camera in, but I'll undo this Jubilee clip, undo that Jubilee clip. There's a couple of, they look like brass springs actually, one there and one here, and I'll pop that pipe off and I'll clean that pipe and I'll make sure that it's not rusty. I'll replace the rubber hose here, I'll replace that rubber hose there, and were there any, oh yes, there's one more rubber hose around this side, just a short piece of the hose, and that goes that goes, I think that goes onto the I think it's, do you know, I can't remember what it connects onto. Oh, yeah, it's just I was going to say the fuel pressure regulator. Of course not. That's what lets the fuel in. No, it just connects into a pipe that comes straight out of the fuel rail. So I'm going to dismantle that off camera, get it off, clean it. If there's any risk that it is damaged, I'll have to replace this pipe. If there's any risk of perforation. Can you imagine, you know, little tiny perforations of petrol going down here into where it's hot? I'm not going to risk it, so I'm going to take it off and inspect it very carefully. It'll take me a while to get it off without breaking it, but once it's off, I'll clean it and polish it, and of course replace the rubbers.